The Spider-Man comic book that vanished. A man carrying a comic book as though it were made of gold enters the pawn store. He's not anxious. He is thrilled because he is holding Amazing Fantasy number 15, which is Spider-Man's first appearance. This isn't your average collectible. In the realm of comics, it is a giant. The beginning of one of the world's greatest superheroes. The entire store leans in as soon as he takes it out. People fantasize of discovering something like this in an attic. An actual trophy for collectors. Where did you purchase this? About 20 years ago, my brother and I purchased a collection of comic books, and this was one of them. He claims to have discovered it hidden under a stack of comics that he and his brother had purchased more than 2 decades prior, just waiting to be discovered. He wants to make money today because it's a once-in-a-lifetime score. He believes that the $16,000 he is requesting is worth every cent. Spider-Man is a world-renowned figure. The legacy, the movies, and the merchandise. This one problem was the beginning of it all. He believes that this comic is a winning ticket, and is wagering that the pawn shop will agree. That's incredible. Well, you're similar to the person who purchases the Andy Warhol from a thrift store. Yes, essentially. However, Corey has played the game for too long to leap for something bright without taking a deeper look. He is aware that in the comic book industry, condition is crucial. Even the rarest problem can quickly lose value if it sustains even minor harm. And the pressure is on with a comedy this large. Before continuing, Corey chooses to consult his comic book specialist. He refuses to remove it from the sleeve himself. It's that serious. In the series, Amazing Spider-Man was the most popular. This serves as a sort of preface to it. It was similar to a TV pilot found in comic books. The specialist knows exactly what he's looking at when he gets there. Top-rate copies of the same comic have sold for more than $1 million, according to him. However, those are perfect. No stains, chipping, or damage to the spine. There are issues with this one. There are a few minor wrinkles, fading on the cover, and obvious chipping along the edges. There are no missing pages, but it is clearly worn. Sadly, circumstance reigns supreme in this world. Man, Fantasy 15. Wonderful. 1 in 9.6 condition has sold for more than $1 million, in my experience. The specialist offers his opinion following a thorough examination. It is in excellent shape. Not quite mint, but not a complete bust either. According to him, it is worth between $6,000 and $7,000. The vendor is severely impacted by that. He entered believing he had won the lottery. The price he is seeking is now less than half. He makes an effort to discuss and clarify the cultural significance, but the expert refuses to budge. It is destroyed by its defects. There is no avoiding it. Between $6,000 and $7,000. Really? That is significantly less than what I would have placed there. Corey makes a $7,000 offer. His ceiling is that. After attempting to haggle, the seller gives up. Falls once more before landing at $10,000. Corey won't move, though. There is too much harm. $7,000 is a nice amount in this market. Corey isn't taking any chances. I can tell you from experience that this is the worst time in history to sell comic books, regardless of how historic the issue is. I could go all 11. It's simply not there for me because of the problems with its condition, you know. The comic eventually leaves with the vendor. Just disappointment, no deal. He still thinks it's more valuable. Perhaps someone will eventually pay him what he is requesting. Not today, though. In this pawn shop, no. This is the world's rarest and most important Star Wars prototype. The Neverware's $150,000 Boba Fett. A man carrying a piece of Star Wars history enters the pawn store. It is no larger than a hand, tiny, and made of plastic. It's more than simply a toy, though. This unique rocket-firing Boba Fett prototype dates back to 1979. The room transforms as soon as it's set on the counter. Rick, who has witnessed almost everything, is aware that this might be a major situation. This is not only uncommon, but legendary in the world of Star Wars collecting. A model of Boba Fett. This Boba Fett action figure, which shoots rockets, was never made in large quantities. Today, I'm come to sell the figurine. According to the seller, this figure was displayed in the New York Toy Expo in 1979. The next big item was supposed to be it. Cool, deadly, and mysterious, Boba Fett arrived with a functional rocket launcher on his back. However, the toy business panicked just before it was put on the market. The small red rocket that was supposed to shoot out of his back was suddenly viewed as a potential choking threat. Thus, the launch was stopped altogether. The rocket was cemented into place in the final retail copies. However, this prototype is still functional. This is the only transported rocket shooting Boba Fett in the world, and it was on show at the 1979 New York City Toy Market. This is the final prototype of its sort. The sole one that remains sealed in its original container. Even though he knew exactly what he possessed, he has kept it for years. However, he is now prepared to share it, ideally with another ardent Star Wars enthusiast. His goal is $150,000. Firm. No haggling. It's worth every cent, in his opinion. This isn't sentimentality. It's a relic from a galaxy far, far away of museum quality. All right. And everyone was really furious. That's extremely cool. How much would you like to pay for this precious item? I'm requesting a definite $150,000. Rick takes no time in speculating. He brings in his Star Wars specialist, who is well versed in rare toys. It's all in the expert's response. The Holy Grail is this. The jewel in the crown of Star Wars figurines. With direct Toy Fair providence, a sealed card, and a functioning rocket. This is not merely uncommon. It's entirely original. A number is thrown forth by the expert. At least $125,000. Even if it's a lot of money, the seller who insists on $150,000 won't accept it. True. Indeed, there is no question about it. When it comes to collecting Star Wars toys, this is the ultimate goal. It's in your store and right here. Rick considers his alternatives. He's not going to purchase this to hang on his wall. He must turn it over. He offers something serious. $100,000 in cash. Sitting on the table, that's more than most individuals earn in a year. However, it is still insufficient. The vendor gives a headshake. It's more than simply the money to him. It has to do with what the toy stands for. Uniqueness, heritage, and the incalculable worth of being the only one on the planet. It's a good deal. I will not purchase this as an investment. I intend to purchase this in order to resell it. I get it. The transaction fails. No sale, no handshake. Boba Fett with the rocket exits the pawn store in the identical manner that it entered. Priceless, untouched, and yet looking for the ideal place to call home. Maybe one day someone will give $150,000 without thinking twice. Today, however, the rarest prize in the galaxy remains off the shelves. How may I be of assistance to you? Hello, how are you? I mean, my motorcycle is extremely awesome. You should give it a look, in my opinion. Nice. In the back, I got an alley. Would you like to drag it back there? We succeeded. The old motorcycle that almost made Corey go crazy. Occasionally, something arrives at the gold and silver pawn store that causes time to stop right away. It was a machine with a backstory, not a watch or a coin. When a guy arrives with a 1940 Indian Chief motorcycle, replete with a sidecar and military history leaking from every bolt, that's just what happens. I got a 1940 Indian Chief with a World War II veteran on the side. This is just awesome. As soon as Corey sees it, he becomes enamored. The object appears to be more appropriate for a war museum than a backyard. It becomes evident that this is more than just a great bike as the vendor begins to describe its history. It was constructed in the early 1940s, shipped to France during World War II, and then confiscated and used by German forces. It is an item from the past. I'm selling in order to finance my daughter's college education. I want to leave with 46,45,000. I would go somewhat lower, but not significantly. Indian motorcycles are well made, dependable, and attractive. And this one has been meticulously rebuilt, rewired, and repaired. The paintwork is striking. Like the glory of American engineering in those days, The engine hums. A beast, indeed. Additionally, every component appears to have undergone meticulous maintenance. It's evident that the man claims to be an Indian collector. I needed to start working on it and get everything up. It required a battery and a complete rewire. I started up after applying some new oil. It went flawlessly. He is requesting at least $55,000, if not more. Even for something this uncommon and striking, that is a high premium. However, Corey chooses to be cautious rather than dismiss it. He doesn't completely reject the bike. To confirm every aspect, he consults a specialist in vintage motorcycles. It might be worth a second look if the story holds up. I therefore hoped to receive between $55,000 and $60,000. I would really like to have a friend look it over. Tell me the value of it. A few such items. When the expert shows up, he is astounded with only one glance. He's amazed at how clean it is. Such bikes are typically seated behind glass. This one still functions flawlessly. They test drive it briefly, bouncing down the street in that decrepit sidecar as if it were a historical joyride. The verdict is in when they get back. It was among the military's most dependable motorcycles. Why is it so trustworthy? They were far more durable than the Harley-Davidson engines and transmissions due to the way they were constructed. That number doesn't appeal to the seller. He believes that the sidecar alone costs an additional $5,000. He highlights the frame's uniqueness, restoration efforts, and historical significance. However, Corey has finished his assignment. He recently made $42,000 at auction for a virtually identical bike. It wasn't quite as immaculate, but it was close. Therefore, he offers $38,000. I must know the value of it. I would like to test drive it and see how the suspension works in that sidecar before I offer a price. The space becomes more constrained. The seller is already emotionally invested in the bike, so that offer feels like a slap in the face. He claims that the lowest amount he can go is $40,000. Corey pauses. Spending that much money bothers him unless there is a definite profit. However, Corey has a thing for motorcycles, so this is a unique find. I received $42,000 for the sidecar. Side vehicle. Was it this pleasant? No, it wasn't. Although it wasn't quite as pleasant as this, it was very nearly so. For it, I adore $38,000. Finally, Corey gives in. Despite being well aware that it's a gamble, he gives the man $40,000. He leaves with enough cash to pay for his daughter's college education. One of the most recognizable military motorcycles ever produced is taken away by Corey. As the dust settles, it becomes evident that this was no ordinary pawnshop transaction. A chance at a better future was exchanged for a piece of living history. You can't buy it. What's in the back is what I'm selling. It appears like the trunk contains a lot of rubbish. The Porsche engine that almost forced Rick to leave. The gold and silver pawn store frequently receives crazy stuff, but on this particular day, something really strange arrives. A man strapped into the rear of his truck with a fully loaded Porsche Carrera 911 engine. The kind of thing that shouts performance and horsepower. But it also shouts danger in Rick's world. I work in a yard, so I am aware of the motors. I'm here to sell parts. The seller says it's from a 2000 Porsche Carrera, says he got it from a junkyard, and wants almost $5,000 for it. Rick is curious but wary. Porsche engines, particularly the 6-cylinder, water-cooled, low-profile models like this one, can fetch a hefty price tag. It seems like a good find on paper. However, Rick is aware that appearances are not always reliable, particularly when the term junkyard is used. This particular engine is a water-cooled pancake motor with 6 cylinders. Their equilibrium is far superior. Rick's radar begins to ping as soon as he approaches the engine. The engine appears to be harsh. Too harsh. The metal has some rust and looks dull. Evidence of exposure and perhaps even saltwater damage is seen. After asking some pointed inquiries, Rick soon discovers that it has been languishing for years in less than ideal conditions. The alarm bells begin to sound at that point. Was it close to the sea? Yes, since it appears to have significant water damage. But only outside, not inside. I ask to run it out with the man in the jungle. When something seems shady, he does what he always does. He summons Danny, his favorite mechanic. He is the only person who can detect problems in a motor. Danny looks at more than just the engine. Like the engine's hidden secrets. He listens, probes, and asks questions. It's a cool motor, but I have some reservations. It appears to be water damage. All I want is for someone to take a look. Okay. I'll go and call him. I'll be right back. When Danny arrives, he clocks the same problems right away. He notices a throttle body that has been left out in the weather, exposed compartments, and unsealed fuel rails. Everything that ought to be sealed is now completely exposed. And when that occurs, corrosion and moisture seep within rather than merely remaining on the exterior. On the outside, this engine may like a Porsche, but what's going on within is anyone's guess. You see, I'm a Porsche enthusiast. Porsche is undoubtedly well organized. They're excellent performance motors, after all. They weigh little. Since everything is positioned on the bottom, they have a fantastically low center of gravity. Danny dissects it with harsh candor. Cracking it open is the only way to find out if it works. It's a risk even in that case. Rick dislikes using $5,000 to gamble. However, the vendor firmly argues that it is a reliable motor, swears by it, and claims that any reputable mechanic would notice that it is still in fine working order. Rick doesn't believe the reasoning or the engine. There are other chambers that ought to have been sealed off, but they are all open. Tension rises when objects are left open, such as when the throttle body and fuel rails are left uncovered. DY becomes impatient with the seller's constant chatter. But rather of blowing up, Danny simply turns to leave. He doesn't even bother to make a lowball offer, Rick. For Rick, the risk is personal as well as monetary. He's not going to risk the reputation of his shop on a water-damaged motor that has been sitting in a junkyard for an unknown amount of time. Since there is no pressure inside the engine, I don't think all of the corrosion can enter the injectors. He gives the man his gratitude and goes cold. No compromise, no agreement, simply a firm end. He takes his engine with him. Rick merely gives a headshake. Knowing when to say no may be the most important ability of all in a setting like this where anything can enter. I have something to show you. Check to see if it interests you. It's a Knights Templar uniform from the 1880s. That's incredibly awesome. In 1889, a guy by the name of John T. longed it and was made a Knight Templar. It was the Templar robe that silenced Rick. The appearance of a 140-year-old Knights Templar costume in the gold and silver pawnshop is not common. It appears to have been taken from a museum. The air of clandestine ceremonies, gleaming silver, and lavish embroidery. Rick is unable to dispute the seller's assertion that it belonged to a man who was admitted into the Templar Order in the late 19th century. It's awesome. Very cool. The past almost seeps into the fabric. Stories of crusades, hidden treasures, and enigmatic brotherhoods seem to be whispered by every stitch. One group connected to the Masons is the Knights Templar. I've been a member for more than 2 decades. I was never asked to assist if they were defending the Holy Grail. In the beginning, Rick is impressed. All of the silver and gold threads are hand-stitched. For whatever reason, the details haven't been altered in more than a century. There is no tarnish on the silver. The weight of the cape remains intact. This object was obviously reverently preserved. Additionally, this strikes a personal chord for Rick, who has been a member of the modern Templars for more than 20 years. He is familiar with the legends, myths, and tales of lost riches and the Holy Grail. This goes beyond a simple costume. It is a piece of history from a hidden corner. For more over 20 years, I have been a Knights Templar. All right. The Templar Knight's tale is incredibly fascinating. During the Crusades, they were supposed to have discovered the Holy Grail when they first traveled to the Holy Lands. The Ark of the Covenant was discovered. However, praise doesn't cover expenses, and Rick is well aware that being unusual doesn't automatically equate to being valuable. Despite the uniform's remarkable appearance, there is a serious issue. No one is purchasing. It isn't that the work lacks authenticity. The reason for this is that the market for Templar or Masonic relics is stagnant. Rick has previously experimented with anything from elaborate regalia to rare medallions. 4 months, they remain unused on the shelves, gathering more dust than they provide. The seller then emits the $6,700 figure. It is entirely hand-embroidered. All of it is in silver and gold bullion. This hasn't been touched in more than 115 years, which is what makes it so unique. Additionally, every piece of silver is in exquisite shape. Rick's tone shifts at that point. In an instant, his fascination turns to frustration. Because the resale value is terrible, even though the craftsmanship is museum quality. This is a lesson Rick learnt the hard way. In the shop, he had beautiful Masonic artifacts that seldom attracted attention. And here he is, demanding thousands of dollars for something Rick may never sell. Not even at a loss. Simply put, not at all. It's really fascinating. It's great work. This is my main issue. This is only going to be purchased by no one. Rick gives a direct explanation. There's no point in sugarcoating the brutal reality. No matter how rare it is or how rich its history is, this thing is essentially worthless. The sort of thing that only one person in a million finds appealing. Furthermore, it's unlikely that that one individual will be entering the building anytime soon. I have the most exquisite Masonic medallions and other items that are detailed in gold. I won't get a diaper from anyone. It's just too difficult to sell, but perhaps your temple thing will buy a mafia for a drastically reduced price. Rick, however, detests ignoring good history. It's evident from his hesitation. However, business is business. It's simply not worth the danger, regardless of how much he personally admires the Templars or the heritage embroidered on that robe. He leans back with the expression that says, "That hurt more than I'll admit," and walks graciously past, sending the man on his way. "Have a good one, and thanks for bringing it up." "Many thanks. I wish you had purchased it, but I know it's a very tough item to sell." Rick could have seized the opportunity in a different society, perhaps one where purchasers waited in line for artifacts of covert brotherhoods. However, even the most fascinating tales can occasionally come to a halt in the real world. This leather motorcycle jacket is what I'm attempting to sell. Given that the battle prize was found to be German, I believe it to be from either World Battle I or World War II. It simply appears to be an old leather motorcycle jacket that has been scuffed and tattered, possibly from a wardrobe that has been forgotten. However, everything changes when Chum Lee notices the stitches and patches. Mac stitched the chest together. A patch in the air. Like a battle cry, the words "Battered Bastards of Bastonia" were painted over the back. I'm hoping to receive $1,000 for this vintage motorcycle jacket, which I believe is from either World War I or World War II. It's not just fashion, it's a tale, and it may even be a memento from one of the bloodiest standoffs of the war. The seller's knowledge is limited. It may have some value and was recently acquired from his father's collection. Chumley acknowledges that it might, but something seems strange. It has a tighter, shorter, nearly European cut. The fit of American coats in the 1940s was different. And that raises another query. Is this even an American? Chumley summons assistance. I discovered this when organizing my home's closets. This was just one of the many old leather coats my dad has accumulated over the years. The specialist comes in. The mystery grows with only one look. The patches make allusion to Bastonia and Normandy, two of the most memorable events in the 101st Airborne Division's history. In reality, the shattered bastards were encircled by German forces in frigid snow during the Battle of the Bulge. No ammunition, no food, no opportunity. The US commander famously responded to the Germans' call for capitulation with just one phrase: "Nuts." This jacket is more than just a tribute to that history. It's worn by it. This jacket has a lot going on with it. The Battle of the Bulge is being referred to as the Battered Bastards of Bone. Here's the twist, though. The jacket's cut is unmistakable. It's German. Vintage Luftwaffe style. Sharp shoulders, a high-cropped waist, and all the telltale features of a pilot's coat indicate the most likely place of origin. It was removed from a German pilot who had been caught, returned home by an American soldier, and transformed into a unique war trophy, a piece of leather encrusted with battle wounds and bloodlines. In actuality, it's a really vintage German pilot leather jacket. A pilot lifts off. However, genuineness is important. Chumley intently observes as the specialist focuses on the paint. Aged into the leather's crevices like only time can do, the spider was flaking and spidering. They didn't add this afterward. This paint was used during the war. The authentic. I am aware that these are frequently fabricated. How can we determine whether this jacket was painted during the war? The number 12,000 follows. It wasn't an error. A collector might pay that amount for it. Chumley, however, does not recoil. He has enough experience in this industry to understand that rarity does not always translate into a sale. It may take years to locate the perfect buyer for something this specialized and full of military symbolism. For the amusement alone, he offers $1,000. I wouldn't be shocked if this item sold for $12,000. Whoa. Okay. Thank you for coming down, though. Okay. I wish you luck. Thank you. Chum, see you. Chumley is already retreating, but the vendor continues to press. It has nothing to do with history or quality. It has to do with the danger. It will take too long, and there are too many unknowns. You.